awesome.
And, you know,
to see.
like, I see, like, where they start, and
Yep.
now they get to share their story. You
Exactly.
know, there was a time where I couldn't have a conversation. So I would say that first initial spark was that entrepreneurial mindset getting into shoe reselling. That's a moment in your life that I say happens to many of us. I took that step and say, you know what? Maybe it's a calling for me. Maybe it was that aha moment, and that's where I'm at today with Vitt Factor.
What brings you to Austin, first and foremost? I know you're here on some business, and we've been talking about some things that are coming up, but
Yeah.
let's get going.
Yeah, so down here in Austin, actually my first time here in Austin. I'm glad to be here with Daryl. I've known Daryl for, it feels like, my whole life. But
Nice.
down here in Austin, I had a couple meetings for getting some corporate speaking, doing some game plan stuff for the next couple weeks, and then heading over to Vegas tomorrow, and then out to Utah for a big moment of my life, which I'll
That's
explain in a
awesome.
few minutes.
Yeah, no, that's
And
gonna
really,
be awesome.
and really quick, if you could just give us a quick overview of like what you do, right? Businesses you own or anything of that nature. Just quick little overview.
Yeah, so my company's Vitt Factor. I'm 21 years old, and I started about 2 years ago.
Cool.
In July was 2 years, and I'm working with the youth. So I'm a double certified life coach, so I do one-on-one mentoring and coaching on life skills. So teaching them how to communicate and have a conversation, that self-confidence, motivation, getting them to believe in themselves, not comparing themselves to others. And so I do the one-on-one coaching, group workshops. It's about, let's say, 10 to 50 kids, and then I do school assemblies. So that's
awesome.
about 50 to 1,000 kids, and that's what I do with the youth. And then I have a 1% team. It's a team of 50 young professionals and entrepreneurs. And then I'm in the event space where I host 2 different types of events.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
what are those 2 events?
Yep, so the first event is the Mind Shift event. So
Okay.
that is for the ages that I work with, ages
Okay.
8 to 18.
Okay.
I bring on speakers, got a lot of sponsors for that. Instead of it being more like motivational, it's more of like hands-on learning. So a lot of interactive components to that, so group work stuff. And then I had my first annual event last summer, about 125 kids in person there.
Nice.
And then my other event is for all ages, so that's my Ripple Effect event. I had my second annual this past January, had about 250 in person, 50 on a live stream. It was very motivational, a lot of networking components, so focusing on making valuable connections, kickstarting the year in the right direction. That's why I hosted the first weekend of the year, and just overall leveling themselves up personally and professionally.
No, that's awesome, dude. And then where do you host those events?
Yep, so I host them at the Bolingbrook Golf Course there. They have an awesome ballroom space, and that's
I was
a lot.
actually at that January one.
Yes.
Yeah, and they just had the live event there
Yep,
too.
so they just had
which
the
is
live
awesome.
event. I attended that event, and it was super cool because it's right in my hometown. I've
Yeah.
been actually working at the golf course for about 6 years. Don't do it too much anymore
Yeah.
because obviously I'm super busy with Vitt Factor, but
Yeah.
been born and raised in Bolingbrook, still living there 21 years later, and attending the live event, and now host my events there too.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
you said you're 21?
21 years old.
That's
yes.
awesome. So we're all from, the 3 of us are all from the same place.
Exactly.
So we come from very, very much the same background, and understanding like, what you went through and some of the places you've been through and what that childhood looked like. A lot of these things line up. But so you and Daryl are pretty close in age, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always remember Caden as just like a year younger than me.
Yep,
So it was
exactly.
always like, when I was in 7th grade, it was funny because like, I barely remember it, but
Right.
I just remember like 7th grade, you coming through the doors as like a 6th grader, and it was always just like, oh, like Caden, like who's this Caden? It was just like, I just picture like one of those kids that like he kind of just knows everybody, he
Yeah.
talks to everybody, it's just one of those things, and I think
Right.
like it's really cool to be sitting here now currently, and like we're all in the same room from the same hometown
Yep.
in a whole different city.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that's really cool to highlight. And again, like I said, I was at that January event, and I mean, it was great just to be able to like network with a whole bunch of people and just really just learn from a lot of people that are in that, business kind of circle that we are.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, and
no,
I think
that's
it's super important. I remember, knowing you back in middle school and staying connected throughout high school.
Yeah.
And now I guess you could say we're almost business partners in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
doing a lot of partnership collaboration
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
super excited to be here on DNA Talk.
That's awesome, man. So, like, as you know, DNA, we go into people's businesses and what they do, and
Yeah.
we do a deep dive into, how they go about operating those businesses and what got them into it. But at the heart of it, we really want to get to know who you are, where you came from, where your parents came from, and hear a little bit more about that story. And we're definitely, I'm sure, going to get into a whole bunch of tips and tricks and advice that you have for young entrepreneurs and stuff like that would be very, very valuable to them and anybody else that's watching. But let's start from the very beginning, man. Who is Caden? Where are your parents from? Who last name is
Vittorini.
Vittorini, all
Yeah.
right? So I'm assuming that has something to do with the name.
Yep,
but,
has
so
something to do with the
let's talk
name.
about the Vittorini roots, man.
Yeah, so my dad is from Lombard. My mom is from like the Brookfield, LaGrange
Okay.
area there. Still living out in Bolingbrook myself, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. And I would say it really started with, I did Taekwondo. So that was my biggest thing. That was my biggest sport that I was, say I'm pretty good at. So I'm a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Nice.
I've competed in the Junior Olympics about 6-7 times, medaled 3 or 4 of those times, traveled to California, to Dallas, to Florida, all across the country to compete in these top level tournaments. But why I brought the Taekwondo up is because I see that's where my roots started from, right? And it brought me discipline. It brought me mindset. It kept me going because I had an old school Korean master. So he was born and raised in South Korea. I mean, he
That's
was
awesome.
brought up, right? You
Some
see
real
the Karate
Karate
Kid
Kid
movies.
stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, man,
Exactly.
that's just like, that was your American Italian story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly,
awesome.
right? And that's what formed me to where
Yeah.
I'm at today. And
That's awesome.
he put me
Yeah.
through some very tough training. And, in the winter, I'd be running in the back and doing push-ups and kicking the pad a certain amount of times in a minute. And I'd be sparring people 4 or 5 years older than me that
Yeah.
had more experience. But at the end of the day, I look at it, he was doing that for the best for me because he saw the potential I had and is going to push me to that point where he knows I can succeed at.
Now, what would you say, like, through that experience, right? I know you said you've learned multiple things, right, through that experience. But if you had to pick, like, one thing, like, your biggest takeaway from that type of experience and how that kind of carries on into, like, what you're doing currently now, what is that?
Discipline.
Discipline?
100% discipline because I think, in order to achieve personal, professional success in life, discipline is everything. I feel like that's the root of your motivation, your goals you have, your confidence. If you aren't disciplined, then it's going to result into your life and the path you're going down for sure. So discipline is my takeaway from that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that Taekwondo is something that you continue throughout,
Yeah.
since you were a kid, right?
Exactly, and I still train here and
That's
there on my
awesome.
own and stuff, right, to keep up with it a little bit. I stopped, I think it was like 8th grade, freshman year of high school. It's when I stepped away, but I got burnt out because it was not fun,
Yeah.
right? There was times where I dreaded going, and the tournaments were tough. I knew I was gonna have to spar 7-8 times to get to that gold medal match. So it was tough stuff, but it built me to where I'm at today.
That's awesome, man. So what was that? We're learning the discipline throughout Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Obviously, we started to get burned out a little bit. So that brings us to 8th grade, freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What does that look like in terms of where you are now? Right? Did we start to figure out all right, cool, Taekwondo is not maybe something I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Is it, I want to go to school? Is it, is that when the entrepreneurial mindset started to kick in?
Yep.
What was
Yeah,
that? What was that like?
Almost like, when was that spark?
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
So I would say the first initial spark was that entrepreneurial mindset getting into shoe reselling.
Okay.
So I
remember that, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you
I
remember.
totally
would
forgot about that for one
be
second.
spamming my Instagram and Snapchat stories, all the shoes I'd be getting, but rather obviously work for myself versus like a 9-to-5 or at that time working at say a Panera or somewhere like that. Not like those jobs aren't good or whatever, but that just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So started the shoe reselling, made my own little account and stuff, built up my network through just posting on social media, that trust, that foundation.
That got pretty big too, right?
Yeah, it was scaling a little bit. I'd go to the events and have 100 pairs on my table
That's
and
awesome.
people be coming up and selling 10 pairs at a time and buying from other tables. So,
Yeah.
I was networking that way. I was making good money. I was enjoying what I was doing. And that shoes, obviously I got the off-white Air Forces right
Those
here.
are
the
those
green
are so
ones
clean. dude.
representing the Vitt
Wait,
Factor.
show the
that's
camera
awesome.
that one more time, dude. Those are just.
Here's the other
Fire, dude.
side.
There we
Yep,
go.
There we go.
That's how you know
So-
you were in the shoe game before all this.
Yes, exactly.
But following that, because I know you were doing that for a little bit, and
Right.
I knew that you were making pretty good money from that.
Right.
Again, and I'm sure you're probably gonna get to this, but that transition from now the shoes to Vitt Factor, right? I think that's a pretty big jump from selling gym shoes to basically, selling yourself and this, doing a whole bunch of life coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where was that transition?
Yeah, so I actually, before I get there, I went to college to play lacrosse. So I went to Western Michigan, played my first year of a Division I club there. It was very, very tough. I mean, it was practice 5 days a week, lifting, traveling on the weekends, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted to focus on my future. And kind of where that aha spark moment came in where So I've done some coaching in the past with my mom. So she used to do some one-on-one, some smaller workshops, and I was just helping her out for some leadership stuff to get my foot in the door with maybe some opportunities. But where that kind of happened was I was helping with some of her one-on-ones, some of the workshops, and one day a lot of the parents came to her after maybe a couple of weeks building up and were like, "Hey, who's Caden? My son or daughter interested in working with him?" And I was like, "Me, I'm just, I guess you could say, her little assistant, right? Helping her out, giving her my story, and helping through those clients and moments that they're going through, because I was obviously more young, relatable, and relevant towards them." And I realized that that's what my gift was. I was able to connect with, I guess you could say, our youth in those life skill ways. And that's why I was like, I remember my mom texted me and was like, pretty much saying like, "Is this something that you want to start of your own? Is it a calling almost?" And that's a moment in your life that I say happens to many of us. It's probably 3, 4, 5 times through everyone's life where it's like, it can make or break your future. 100%. I could have said, I'll say a college student. I'll continue down maybe the 9-to-5 path, working for someone else or doing whatever. But I took that step and say, you know what? Maybe it's a calling for me. Maybe it was the aha moment, and that's where I'm at today with Vitt Factor.
So before we get into all of that, I think it's really important to rewind and really understand that last part, right? Because as I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm like, all right, well, he's probably 18, 19 at that point, right?
Yeah.
Your brain automatically goes, and not that I believe that at this point, very point in moment, it's like, all right, well, he's 18, 19. What does he have to offer, right? Like, what is he going to teach me or somebody that's even older than him?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I want to know a little bit more about what that working relationship with your mom was like. You said you were like her assistant.
Yep.
What did that specifically look like, and when did that start?
Yeah, so I think it was like between 100 and 2 hours of experience with her. So I already did a lot of work with her. It's not like I just started and it happened. So I had some experience.
That 102 hours, is that when you were in high school?
Yeah, so that was like through high school and like getting through college a little bit.
So what were you doing during those 102 hours that were helping her?
Just a lot of the one-on-one coaching, some of the workshops and stuff like that is what I was helping her
So you would
through.
talk as a high school student to people that were older than you?
So mainly like middle schoolers is what I was talking with. Maybe some high schoolers too, just because, by that point I had a lot of experience. So obviously
That's
not
awesome.
to the point where I'm at today, but had that experience and able to connect with those kids.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Vitt Factor, right? So now your mom already says, she's like, all right, cool. Is this something that you want to do on your own? Is this something that you're interested in? What did that process look like?
Yeah. So, I went for it, right? I said, you know what? I would be cool to have my own company in a way. And obviously I did the shoe reselling, so I already had the entrepreneurial mindset through managing finances, network, social media, and wanted to build like my own personal brand. And like you said in the beginning, I think everybody always is selling themselves, an idea or a product. And for me, I would say it's mainly myself, right? But also a product and my ideas at the same time. So that's kind of where Vitt Factor came from. But you guys are probably wondering, like, what is Vitt Factor? Like, where did it stem from? So bringing us back to 2-3 years old, my grandma, who I call Tia, always told me that I had the it factor, right? So whether it's through sports or school, right, smaller things, whatever. And thinking back, right, it factor. But my last name's Vittorini. How could I combine the two? So I took it factor, Vittorini, and turned it into Vitt Factor. And that's
awesome.
where the name came from. And as you see here, it's the V with the crown, and then the Vitt right here is the IT in the gold.
That's awesome,
Yep.
dude.
I absolutely love that. I feel like if you're from like our hometown, like if you don't know the name and you've seen that, like you know what it is, right? You know what, like at least the branding aspect of it.
Exactly.
But no, I think that's a really cool. Like, not a lot of people are able to kind of find that, that what's the word for it? That connection between like their past, right? To be able to name something after their last name even, right?
Yeah.
Again, even with DNA, like we just got lucky, I think, because we were like, okay, we really like this name DNA, and it just ended up working out that it was my first name, his first name, and then our other co-founders that first name too.
Yeah.
So I mean, sometimes you could say it's a coincidence, but sometimes it's just meant to
I
be.
always say things happen for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Of course.
Yeah.
So obviously we're getting to the creation of Vitt Factor and all of those things. So tell us a little bit more about. I know you said your business has multiple phases, right?
Yeah.
What are those different phases?
So yeah, it just started off with the one-on-one coaching,
Okay.
right? I was building up my clientele, having 4 or 5 clients that I was working with on a weekly basis, but I knew there was more. I knew I didn't just want to do the one-on-one coaching, so that's where I kind of stemmed into the workshop type, right?
Yeah.
Started bringing in like 8, 9, 10 kids at once and doing that. And then actually did my first school assembly at our middle school.
JFK, huh?
JFK assembly. I
What's
know
up?
he was there. He was
Yeah.
getting some content
I
of
was
us
there.
too.
I was there as well.
Yeah, so it was a great assembly. And, you
Wait,
know,
you were there for the assembly?
No, I went to JFK.
Oh,
Yes,
oh,
yeah.
Far
Oh, you went
before
to
you
JFK?
guys went.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
That's right.
So yeah, no, I mean, shout out Mr. Hundo
Yep,
for giving me
that's
that
right.
opportunity to
Yep.
go back there. And I remember going into his office, and this was newer into the business. I think it was like 4 or 5 months in, and presenting the opportunity, like, hey, this is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is how I can impact your students. And obviously, being a former student, he had that trust already built in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I went in there, did my first assembly, and it was a very big success. And
That's awesome.
kind of where I stemmed into like the assemblies, and now I'm traveling all throughout Illinois. I've done about 12 different schools so far, working with a lot of people through Will County and through a lot of the higher ups in the districts to try to impact. I mean, my goal is every school in Illinois, and then of course traveling across the country from there.
That's awesome, and I know that I've attended plenty of assemblies throughout my school career and
Right.
stuff like that. I mean, it sounds like that's where it started, right?
Yeah.
So, can you like remember a time where you were sitting back in those school assemblies? Everybody's like, "All right, be quiet."
Yep.
All right, like there's an assembly today. We're getting out of class. I
Yeah.
gotta listen to my teachers talk, and this is like sometimes people would go up there and they would be like, all right, who's this guy? Like, what is he going to teach me?
Exactly.
Right? Do you remember what that felt like when you were listening to
Oh,
those
yeah.
assemblies? And
100%.
Did you ever think that was going to be you one day?
No, I did not think that, but kind of looking back, they would bring in like magicians,
Yeah,
right? Or
yep,
someone
I
like
do remember that,
And
yep.
I'd be like, okay, messing with my buddies up
Yep.
top. And, middle school, I was definitely more of a class clown, just having fun with my friends and stuff like
I
that.
remember like seeing you
Right.
just mess around
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
in those
Exactly.
things. Like, there, that one guy that gets called out, right?
Right.
And it was by probably
Yeah.
Mr. Hundo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was Caden.
Yep. Yeah, now there's actually one moment before we get into like
Yeah.
that part you just asked me where I remember being at the girls' 8th grade volleyball game, and I had a big blowhorn.
Yeah,
I actually
the
got
green
it-
one, right?
It was a red one.
Or was it red?
So it was from, I know I told this story
Yeah.
when I went to JFK, was I got it from the Cubs World Series
Yeah.
like parade. So I was a big one, and I was blowing it at it and throwing off the other team when they're going to serve, and just moments like that looking
Yeah.
back is how I was that class clown. But bringing in magicians and stuff, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't take anything away from it. But going in, I make our assemblies. I have a team of coaches that I bring
Yep.
in too with me. Very high energy,
Yep.
motivational, interactive. Of course, a lot of learning at that same time where I get those students engaged. Right, I bring them up to the front. Have them do an activity. I get them to stand up in front of their whole class and have that confidence to do whatever that activity was, right? So, that's where myself and our coaches come in as we're young, relatable, relevant. And I always start off my assembly by talking about, I was in your seat. 7 years ago, I was in middle school. 4 years ago, I was in high school.
Yep.
I know what you're going through. Whether it's maybe you didn't have the best communication skills, maybe you're low confident, low motivation, maybe you hung around the wrong friends,
Yeah.
maybe you do the wrong things like that. I've been there. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
Now, have you had a student that maybe like throughout like all the assemblies that you've done so far? I know you're always the one giving the wisdom, right? Giving the encouragement. But have you came across one student that has taught you something?
Yeah, so I do 2 different activities. One is for elementary school kids. That's a waiter-waitress activity. So I have them like practice like ordering their own food
Okay.
and things like that. So we're walking around constantly. And then also for the middle school and high schoolers, I do a speed connecting activity, whether they get up and they're in a line and then they rotate, talking to different people, practicing these tips and techniques, or they're just turning to a partner or a group. But my coaches and myself are going around, we're talking with the kids about things that they're going through, right? And they've taught me a lot of different stuff. Maybe it's a quote or this or that. But, even through my clients, right? I meet with a lot of kids on a weekly basis. I do have about 35 one-on-one clients weekly. And some of my clients I've had up to 95 sessions with. So I've learned a lot from my clients and even just kids that I'm meeting in my assemblies.
That's awesome. And I've done the coaching, right, for like athletics. Like I'm a baseball coach, and there's nothing that I enjoy more, right, than just spending an hour with the kid, one-on-one, and going over skills, but also going over like the life lessons that are intertwined within like, the game of baseball. Stuff like that is super cool, and it's super inspiring to see people like you that are going out there and just kind of spreading that word, right, and teaching and sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. But I would love to get into the rest of what that business looks like, right? So that's where it started. And now, like, where are we going?
So of
moving
course
forward?
I did the youth stuff through the one-on-ones, group workshops, and assemblies. But I was thinking, what about for my age?
Yeah.
What about like ages like 18 to 24? So that's where I created the 1% team.
Okay.
So that's a team of 50 young, like-minded professionals, entrepreneurs. A lot of us are college or high school students too. And so what I do is I host bi-weekly Zoom calls where I bring on very successful guest speakers. So it's CEOs, VPs, best-selling authors, top international speakers, for them to come teach us their mindset and content, right? These are people that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than a lot of us, and they have a lot of life knowledge and wisdom and success, of course, where they'll talk about sales and marketing. They'll talk about personal brand. They'll talk about mindset, lifestyle. So we're learning from all these different people and different backgrounds and paths while leveling up ourselves personally and professionally. So I do that bi-weekly every other Monday, and then those middle Mondays, I do team breakouts and networking. So I'll bring everyone on in Zoom. It's all through Zoom. I'll put like 3 to 5 people in a breakout session. Just actually had our breakout session tonight where I won't participate in them, but I'll hop in and out just to kind of hear how everyone's going. But the collaboration, the connections, hey, you're looking to do that, here's a network I have for you. Here's a connection that I have. Exactly, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. And our team motto is giving more than you take. Because if you're always giving, think about how much you're going to receive on your end. So I do that, and then I'll host team dinners. We'll do team volunteering to get back to the community, of course, and then we'll attend some other events and stuff like that. But one of our big sponsors is actually Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
So they have sponsored all of our team dinners, events, giving me gift cards to hand out.
That's awesome.
Bringing in 100 chicken sandwiches for our team and stuff like that. So shout out to Chick-fil-A.
I've seen that on social media. No, dude, that's awesome. So with Vitt Factor, how many assemblies have you done in Illinois so far?
Yep, so I've done 12 different schools so far, but throughout those, I've done about 2 to 4 sessions. So I guess you want to call it maybe like 40 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
12 different schools.
And really quick, I just want to piggyback off that question.
Yeah.
Like, how do you plan now, like, moving forward to, like, kind of scale that number?
Yeah.
Right? Cover all the schools in Illinois, and then, far after that as well.
Yeah, so I'm working with someone that's very high level in Will County that looks over, I think it's 167 schools and like 39 districts and stuff. So they're actually providing the funding for our assemblies. So they're getting in contact with the school like, hey, this is Vitt Factor, this is his team, this is what he does, how he can impact your students. Let's find a date to send them in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're working with. And of course, I'm working with some people throughout the districts that, they have a lot of funding in these schools, and going to them and getting on a Zoom, talking with the principals and the teachers.
Yeah.
This is why I started, and again, this is how I can impact your students, and they're all for it.
That's
It's so
awesome.
different, right? Like I said, they're bringing in magicians or comedians, people like that, and the students are having a good time, but how much are they going to really take away?
Yeah.
Because I know what we're teaching is going to set them up for success in every aspect of their life.
And what they'll realize is that it's something that's not done in the classroom.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And, that takes me into why I got started. So I saw the gap in our youth through COVID-19, technology, through social media, gaming, all that stuff. There's a big gap in our youth, right? Through the communication. They don't know how to have a conversation. They aren't motivated. They don't have goals. They don't believe in themselves. So that's where my team and I come in to impact them.
That's awesome, dude.
What's the biggest? I'm just curious. Like, what's the biggest difference that you've seen from like when we were in school, right?
Yeah.
And kind of how the kids acted to like how they are now, right? Like, what's the is there a difference?
I
Are
would
kids
say
nicer?
so.
Are they more? Does their mindset is a little bit more positive? Like, what does that look like?
So I would definitely say, back then, thinking back to when we were in middle school at JFK, we were much more positive, I believe, and we were, I feel like, able to have a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
I feel like when we were in the moment, we weren't on our phones like this.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation. When we would go hang out outside of school, yes, we'd be on our phones here and there, but we would enjoy the moment. We'd go play sports outside or go to travel to Six Flags or wherever. Enjoying the moment, I feel like is what that gap is missing from, I guess you could say, our age group to the younger youth from elementary, middle school, and high school.
So what about yours?
What?
Like, what about yours?
I mean,
I know you're like 3 years older than
right,
us,
yeah,
so
but like
that generation.
for you guys had, I'm assuming at that point, had some type of iPhone or something like that. For me, it was a little bit more like we had the flip phone, the slide phones, so you didn't have, you had the Sidekick, so you weren't on surfing the internet or listening to music on your on your stuff. We had the iPod and stuff like that you would use to listen to music, but you could still pay attention, as it's very clear that you just listen to music,
I remember being
listen
in
to
elementary,
class.
middle school, and I had a phone, but I wasn't on it a crazy amount.
No,
in school,
I mean,
I was
it was
enjoying the moment with my boys
Yeah.
and people that I was meeting throughout the
Oh
school.
yeah, we would ride our bikes till till nighttime.
Exactly.
We would
Mom's
ride
calling
all
me, come home.
100%. I mean,
6 hours.
there was a few
Pick up
times. I
basketball
mean,
games at
there was
that park.
pickleball,
Kickball,
I mean,
all that good
there was a
stuff.
night that we found ourselves on the top of IKEA. Like
Yeah.
it was just like
Right.
that's
Hey,
just
you
how
never
it
told
was.
me about
yeah.
that.
No.
That's
So
things you're gonna enjoy
yeah.
forever. And,
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bringing it back, that's what's missing. It's like that,
Yeah.
just that fun aspect, that like in the moment aspect,
Yeah.
because their head's always down. Which I always talk about, like how you present yourself, right?
Yeah.
Your body language. If your head's buried in your phone, if you're not looking up, if you're slouched over, what are you telling the room?
Yeah.
Because if you're one of those kids that says, "Hey, like, why do I not have friends? Why does no one want to talk to me?" Well, what's your energy and attitude? What are you telling and putting out to the room?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like obviously like before we start talking about the 1%ers and stuff like that, because I do really want to get into into how you're scaling that and how you plan on growing that. But if we're staying here with the youth, right? Yeah. There's 3 words that you keep saying: young, relatable, and relevant. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the 3 key things. So that's something that I heard from the very beginning. You mentioned your mom said that to you,
Yep.
right? And then after that, you start using it, and it's kind of like the Vitt Factor motto, right?
Right.
This is what we're pushing: young, relatable, and relevant. Now, there like age sets on all of us, right? Like I can't believe we're talking about middle school. I'm already 26 years old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? We're never gonna be young forever. We're not gonna be young forever. However, like how do you see the Vitt Factor in that area continuing to grow while you're growing? Maybe in different areas of your
Yeah.
business and stuff like that.
For sure. So I have a future leaders program. So it's a group of 6 kids that I've been working with for either 6 months to 2 years
awesome.
since the beginning.
Yep.
So yes, I still do one-on-ones with them, but I'm talking a lot about more advanced topics. So a lot of them, I'm teaching them how to start a business, like things such as like power of networking opportunities, 30-second elevator pitch, things like that,
Yep.
more advanced topics. But now they're coming in to either one, help me in one-on-one coaching through the workshops or school sent me.
Yep.
So
There you go.
they're the youngest is an 8th grader and the oldest is a junior in high school. So I'll bring them in more towards like younger middle school and elementary,
Yeah.
not more towards like high school, because that's where I have my coaches program.
Yeah.
And they'll help me with that, which they're 20 to 23.
So it sounds like we're preparing them to eventually take that torch,
and a
right?
couple of them have already said like they're
Yeah.
interested in
That's
becoming
awesome.
a
Yeah.
Vitt Factor coach in the future.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great, and that's a great way to see the fruits of your labor, right? From the very beginning, like that's essentially where it all started with you, right?
Right.
And now we're trying to create, not mini Cadens, right?
Yeah.
They're their own individual people, right? But it all started with the motivation, the gap that you saw, and that you're teaching it down
Yeah.
the line. So that's super awesome.
And
to
like
see.
I see like where they start, and
Yep.
now they get to share their story.
Exactly.
There was a time where I couldn't have a conversation. Now I can walk up to a group of kids and make those friendships. And
Oh, yeah.
being able
And
to
you're
share,
talking about being relatable, right?
Yeah.
Like while we said the young part can't stay forever, right?
Right.
Like you can still be relatable, right? Because
Yeah.
you related to that generation of coaches, and then those coaches are being relatable to the next generation, right? So you're always going to be relatable to somebody in that line, right?
Right.
And then which keeps you guys relevant.
Yeah,
at
and
the
I
end
even
of the
say
day.
like 3, 4, 5 years down the road,
Yeah.
even going to a high school,
Yeah.
right? I'm still pretty relatable towards
100%.
them. So
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
no doubt. Like I
Yeah.
coach my high school kids, and like I can relate to them like nobody else can.
Yeah,
right? A lot of these
give them more
coaches,
tough love too.
Exactly,
Like, hey,
right? Because
real life's
Yeah.
coming, and I always hear, oh yeah, real life starts after college. It starts after high school. Like that's when you're
100%.
on your own, especially if you're across the country. You're living by yourself. You
Yeah.
gotta hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
So
And even
yeah.
to some kids, right? Real life starts before even that, right? Like
Exactly,
you,
yeah.
you have no idea what's going on behind the closed doors,
Yeah.
right? What's going on in that family life, and before, and I would love to get to all of that stuff to hear a little bit more about your family and what that was like and the role that they played in making you the man that you are today.
For sure.
But let's get back to the business stuff, scaling the 1%ers. How did you first put together that whole group of young, entrepreneurs and then get it to the point of where you guys are today? Because I think a lot of the people that are out there that are either trying to do something similar or have a business and they're trying to just even start, it's like all of this information is super, super valuable.
Yeah, so I started off with a few of my close people. I
Okay.
know Caleb Majors was like
Yeah.
day one. He was on the podcast.
that's right.
Shout out Anthony Casper. I've known him since kindergarten. Now business
Oh, yeah.
partners with him. So yeah, started off with like, of course, 2, 3. Brought in some other guest speakers a little bit, and now it's a $197 one-time fee to be a part of the team.
Yep.
And then once you're a part of the team, anyone that they personally bring on, they get $50 from them.
Okay,
So
awesome.
it's just an incentive to grow the team. And I'm doing a big October push where I want to hit 100 by the end of October
Nice.
because I
Yeah.
have my 3rd annual Ripple Effect event coming January 3rd. I'm looking to hit 400 people at the Bolingbrook Golf Course.
That's
so
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
if we have 50 more on the team, let's say they each bring 1 or 2 people, that's about maybe 100 to 150 more people
100%,
right there.
man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, so now that all that sounds amazing. I think that's phenomenal what you have done so far. Even like before that, I know you said right, like there's a fee that they had to pay. Prior to that, Caleb Majors, Anthony Casper were some of the first couple people that were that joined that.
Yeah.
Even before that, it's like, what made you like take the action on that, and how can others start taking action on just making that first step? Because I also feel like that's a huge part of it, aside from everything that you just said. Like that first thing really is like you going out there and reaching out to these people, right? So what does that look like?
Yeah, so I saw the impact I was making on our youth, but I was like, why don't we bring like us young professionals and entrepreneurs? Because yes, there's networks out there, but why don't I just start something of my own? And our motto is 1% better every single day. So that's kind of where the 1% team came in from, because you know that success is going to take time. People want results like this, but if you focus on 1% better every single day, that will add up. So you're just thinking about, what about my age? What about for us, Daryl? And that's where I kind of started off small. I didn't charge them in the beginning because it was just getting started, but saw that results, and you know how much they were enjoying it, how much we were learning from these guest speakers, and actually getting that collaboration partnership stuff going. It was really great to see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that's awesome, and I know you have a whole bunch like more to talk about, but I know you are here in Austin because it's a pit stop, and you have something coming up. And tell us a little bit more about it.
Yep. So I'm doing a TED Talk out in St. George, Utah.
awesome.
It is going to be an awesome opportunity. So it's called Ideas Worth Spreading, is TEDx's motto, and coming in, and my talk is making talking cool.
Okay.
So that's specifically for the youth. So
I feel like that's like meant for you.
Yes.
Like that's literally what you do.
Making talking cool. So it's going to be a
Making
great
talking-
opportunity to go out there. So I'm talking about like storytelling, not specific lines, but stories that I've seen, how to start, expand, and end a conversation, what our youth is going through, and the overall focus is social isolation to human connection for teens.
And is that something that you like, you write down and you have like kind of a script that you're going based off of? Or do you freestyle, and do others freestyle it?
Yeah, so I had to put together a whole script. It was originally like 12 minutes, but then I've been working with a TEDx coach there, meet with her like once or twice a week, really finalizing and mastering that talk. Now it's about 7 or 8 minutes, but going up there fully memorized. I'm going to be locked in when I get on that stage, and no slides, nothing,
No
prompter,
teleprompter,
no, none of
that's
that
awesome.
stuff.
Do they allow that?
No.
No, that's
Nope.
awesome.
Wow.
That's great.
Right from the dome.
So my next question is obviously learning, like knowing what TEDx is, like in those TED Talks. You know, hearing all about it. I mean, I was watching TED Talks when I was in middle school, right? Like I remember watching TED Talks because I just thought the topics were so interesting and they're way more fascinating than what I was learning at school.
Yep.
Right. But you know, there's so many different people from different walks of life, right? You have TED Talks in Europe, you have TED Talks in Africa, you have TED Talks here in the States.
Right.
They're all different, right? But they speak some knowledge and speak some, you know, inspiration into you. So what was that process of one, like either being nominated or being selected to get into the TED Talk? What was that whole process like?
Yeah, so I always talk about the power of networking. So I had someone that really got me connected with this. Her name's Rachel Weaver. She's absolutely amazing. So she got me connected with them. I talked to them a little bit. They loved what I was doing, and they are very selective, of course, because it's a huge opportunity that anybody would love to share, of course, their ideas. Selected me, got in contact with them, and started putting together a game plan. And now this upcoming Friday, I'll be sharing my idea.
How long was that whole process?
So it was about a month and a half.
Okay.
Yep, from the beginning stages to
That's pretty quick.
now.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
quick,
quick.
right?
It is. That's
Yep.
very quick.
Yeah.
Was it one of those like use it or lose it type things, or was it like essentially like you got to pick when you wanted to do it and it just so happened to
So
be that
no, it
big?
was just like, this is where the location is, this is the time you're going, this is where it's at. I mean, it was all
awesome.
very,
And
and they're very particular, like, oh my gosh, like when I put together my script, they're like, you can't say that word. You can't say it in that way. They're very strict on like how you say it.
What would you say that, you know, obviously with people in media, like right today, like you have, thank God we have this platform and we are in the States where you can say what you want, right?
Right.
And we know we are growing in hopefully sponsorships and stuff like that where, you know, they may feel like they can or cannot control the narrative. Do you feel like that is kind of something that the direction it was going, or would you just say it's just like they're very specific in the criteria of what you're speaking?
So I had a lot of say in like what like the format is,
That's
but
awesome.
like it was just certain words. They're like, hey,
course.
like this sounds
That's great.
better, or
Yeah.
like should be formatted.
There's a difference between
Right.
those
It was
two.
all like
That's
I put
awesome.
it together. I said, hey, this is my talk. We removed some things, moved some things around, changed up some words, so it wasn't like a big difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, dude, that's That's phenomenal with what everything that you're doing so far. And aside from the TED Talk, do you have any questions before we move on about the TED Talk? Anything else?
No, not about the TED
Okay.
Talk. I mean, I think that stuff's super cool, and I
Yeah.
can't wait to see it. Did they tell you, real quick, last one, did they tell you when it's going to come out or when it's going to air?
So it's be about 6 to 8 weeks after. Yep.
Okay.
Because they got to
Cool.
do, like, of course, the editing.
Yeah.
You guys are
Yeah.
familiar
Certainly.
with that,
Yeah,
the
very much
editing
so.
and put on
Yeah.
their little things and, like, the lighting and stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Nice.
Yeah.
And I actually remembered my question. Like, obviously, you know, I'm assuming you've seen a lot of TED Talks in the past. Who would be your favorite TED Talk speaker? Who would be your favorite TED Talk speaker?
So I know him personally, Marcus Black. He is a phenomenal motivational speaker. Definitely check him out. So
Why does he sound so familiar?
You've definitely
Does
seen
he have like a podcast or something?
a podcast.
Okay.
He's been on top level stages with like Les Brown and Trent Shelton, some of the top international speakers
Very
in
nice.
the world. So he's very, very good at what he does, and I would say he's probably one of the better TEDx's that
Cool.
I've seen. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And then obviously, this is all the TED Talk stuff, but you only got to the TED Talk, right? Because you worked your butt off, and in the Vitt Factor and stuff like that. Who was there? Anybody aside from your family, which we were to get into, that you really spoke to you in terms of like, all right, I want to be kind of like that guy, or I want to mold my business after him, whether it was Mark Cuban or so on and so forth. Was there somebody that you were looking up to throughout this whole entrepreneurial journey?
It's tough to say if there was exactly
Yeah.
one person, because again,
Yeah.
I feel like everyone is their own selves,
Yep,
going down
that's
their own
right.
path. But trust me, I've learned so much from other people. Like
Yeah.
Alex Hermosi is a big
Yep,
one.
that's right.
Love that guy.
I follow the
Yeah.
Tates. I love what they talk about.
What's your favorite quote from Ozzy?
Oh my gosh.
There's so many.
Or some, yeah,
Yeah.
I know there's so many. Or something that you've really kind of seen and taken away from him. If there's not one in particular, that's cool.
Yeah, I think I'm drawing a blank right now on the exact quote, but I have like probably 40
probably
screenshots.
so many- yeah, exactly.
I see his tweets and Instagram
Okay,
stuff.
cool.
But I would say something that he does talk a lot about, which I believe is really important, is personal brand and what you want to be known for by like what you're saying in a conversation, what you post on social media. That's everything. That's
For sure.
it's putting out in the world who you are. So I know not an exact quote, but that's something that he does talk about a lot, is personal brand and what you want to be known for.
And I know we talked about, obviously that's in the business world, but we're talking about family, right? Like
Yeah.
I know you mentioned your grandma who you call Tia, like stuff like that. Like what was growing up like, right? Like, when you were a kid, what was the home like? What was some of the things that your mom or dad or whoever that you looked up to did that kind of made you to the person you are today?
Yeah, so home was great. I mean, my family, specifically my parents, have
Yeah.
been absolutely amazing. I have a brother who's 18 too,
Okay.
AJ. They've brought me up the right way, and
That's
I
awesome.
cannot complain. And there's days where I wouldn't want to do something
Yeah.
or wouldn't want to go to that. But again, they had what was best for me.
Yeah.
They had that vision for who I was going to become, and they were going to lead me down that path, and they did. And I'm very, very thankful because, they told me things through, I was like, yeah, I know, you don't know what you're talking about. I know. I'm sure you guys have been there too.
Yeah.
Like, I know better than you. But at the end of the day, I look back and they knew what they were talking about.
That's awesome.
And they've
Oh, yeah.
really taught me so much. And for me to where I'm at today, of course, me becoming my own version of myself, but have brought me up the right way. And I'm very thankful for that.
So your mom did the life coaching, and what did your dad do for work?
Yep. So he owns his own hair salon.
Okay,
So he has
that's
his own
awesome.
place out in Woodridge area. And then also we have a salon in our basement. So
Okay.
he actually will have a lot of his clients
Yeah.
will come over and
Dude,
just
that's
get their
awesome.
cut there.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
having your dad as a business owner, like, what were some takeaways specifically from him? And then also, is there anything like kind of how does he share that excitement with you that he's now seeing his son like become a business owner, not just a business owner, but
Yeah.
a successful business owner?
Yeah, so I think something that I've learned from him through like on the business side of things
Yeah.
is like that clientele aspect, right? You
Yeah.
really want to build that connection.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of people would just be like, oh, okay, like they're working for me, they're coming to get my
Yeah.
product or
Yeah.
this, but building that relationship part is really, really important. He'll tell me stories about like, clients that he's had since day one.
Yeah.
And that's because he's built that relationship. Yes, he's good at what he does, but I think that's what he's taught me.
That's
on
why people stay.
the business side
Yep.
of things.
And,
Exactly.
and how long has he had it?
About 20, I think it's 28 years
Yeah.
now.
So it's like, how do you keep, and maybe this would be more of a question for your dad, and
Right.
maybe you know this, but how do you keep a client for 20 years straight?
Just
Do you know that, like, has he told you that key, like
I
that
just
secret?
maybe it's that relationship part,
Yeah.
but also
But
just
I feel
being
like
good
it's
at
almost
what
got to
you
be,
do.
yeah. I feel like it almost has to be more than that relationship, part, right?
I'm sure he's got.
Well, but that's where the continued growth, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
not, it's not the initial conversation. Yeah, that sets the tone, but that's not why I'm going to stay with you for 20 plus years, right?
Yep,
of course.
It's like, all right,
That
you're
trust
bringing in that
factor,
trust,
yeah.
right? You're continuing to
Yeah.
grow in that trust. You're continuing to be there during times, especially. I mean, we have a cousin who owns a barber, Profile Studios here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Best barbershop here in Austin.
There we go.
And
100%.
it is by far, like, you walk in there, you feel the love, you feel the people,
That,
right?
yeah.
Those people, I can
culture,
sit here
yep.
specifically and tell you the times that I went and sat in the chair and had a rough day, right?
Yeah.
Right? And, like, those people are there whether they're not saying anything at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they can tell. Like, I truly believe that barbers have this innate, ability, and good ones at least, to
Yeah.
be able to tell, like, all right, wow, like, this is my client. I know what he looks like on a good day,
Mm-hmm.
or know what he or she looks on a good day, looks like on a bad day, looks like looks like on an iffy day, and
Right.
this is how I know how to handle it. Maybe
Yeah.
I talk to him. Maybe I don't talk to him. Maybe I just compliment the shoes. Maybe I compliment
Yeah.
the fit, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. Like, those are the things. And obviously, we are young entrepreneurs ourselves, right? So it's like, I feel like those are the things that we'll continue to learn throughout.
For sure.
But I think that to answer your
Yeah.
question is probably like one of the
Yeah.
biggest one of the biggest things so far.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Well, dude, no, that's great stuff. Last thing that I want to touch on. I know we've had a conversation about it, and there's some. I'm not sure if you're ready to release this. If you're not, we could definitely cut it. But I know you have something else in the works currently right now.
Yep.
What is that?
So we're writing a book right now. So it's called
Awesome, man.
Becoming the 1%, because again, our motto is 1% better every single day. So I grabbed me, some of my boys, 1% team members, business partners, throw out some names: Anthony Casper,
Oh, yeah.
Caleb Majors, Adebayo Kuye,
Oh, yeah.
coming together and sharing our story,
Nice.
where we were at before, that transition, why we're doing what we're doing, that vision we have for ourselves, but coming together at such a young age, right? We're all between 19 and 22, being able to share our story, and it's going to be a book for everyone. So that's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be dropping, I believe, in about a month or so.
Okay.
Still waiting on some things, but Becoming the 1%
That's awesome,
is the
dude.
name of the book.
Perfect. And where can they purchase that book once it's released?
Yeah, so it's going to be anywhere. It could be an ebook, or it's going to be through like Amazon. There's going to be a link. I mean, it's going to be pretty much anywhere.
Pretty much
you'll
anywhere
find it.
you
Yeah,
can? Okay,
search it
cool.
up, Vitt Factor, Becoming the 1% book, and it'll be right there.
Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, dude, I mean, Nicholas, do you have anything else you want
Yeah,
to add?
I know. I mean, I would love to continue. I want to keep with the tradition of our last season and really ask you, if you were to pick a couple of songs that would identify, the season of your life and what that soundtrack would be. What are the few songs that would be it?
Ooh. Trying to think. I would probably say Motley Crue, "Kickstart My Heart."
Okay.
It's just like, that song gets me going for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that's like the track that I have for my life right now. It's
Yeah.
just, I guess you could say, kickstarting my life
Yeah.
in the right direction, along with all these other people that I'm impacting through the youth, through this young professional entrepreneur team that I've put together, and then also through the event space.
Yeah.
Anybody from different paths and backgrounds. So kickstarting their life in the right direction
Nice.
is, I would say, that song. I would
Nice.
pick.
Sure.
That's
Yep.
awesome. And then last question for us to wrap it up. If you can give where you're at right now in your life, the chapter, what would that title be?
Yeah.
You can give it in one word. What would that chapter be?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up, because that's a big part that I talk about before I
Yeah.
answer your question is the title of your book. So that's
Yeah.
a big part I do in my
Yeah.
assemblies, is talk about you're the author of your life. Every page in your book is a day in your life. Every chapter in your book is your birthday. You get to write it how you want it. So I would say the title of my life right now is probably You Create the Life You Want to Live.
All right. That's awesome.
I would say that's the biggest thing that I really do preach, because, a lot of people have influence around them through their friends, through social media, parents, people they work with, that they feel like they have to become what other people want to see them become. But if they realize that they can create that life they want to live, I've realized that I've adopted that into my mindset, and I would say that's my title in my book in a way.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to see everything that you have to come. We can't wait to see the TEDx come out. And
Yep.
Yeah.
take a look at that and the
Can't wait
book
to
as
watch
well.
that, bro.
But
It's gonna be awesome.
if you
Yeah.
want to really quick plug all of your social medias, all of the business, everything that you want people to see and hear about, go ahead and you can tag it right here.
Let's do it. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all Vitt.Factor. You can find me on LinkedIn at Caden Vittorini. Let's connect. Let's do some business. Let's collaborate, and let's make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. We look forward to seeing you next time, man.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Okay,
Best of luck, brother.
appreciate having you on, bro.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I wouldn't give him a high five. Let's do it.
It was
That's just the brother love right there, bro. Yeah, no, of course.